Hey folks, it's Ace Trading again. A lot of folks are asking how to add different types of indicators and things like that to TC2000. For instance, I have the earnings and sales in the corner here. I've got the earnings date. I've got the ADR, things like that I have added to my pane here. And some people aren't quite sure how to do that. So to quickly go over the process, you first have to have a formula in your database. So like this PCF criteria, you either have to have a condition or an indicator formula first before you can add it to your pane. So let's say for instance we wanted to add a new let's just copy the formula here to make it easier. So I'm just going to copy this formula and we're just going to create a new indicator PCF. Now let's just call it, I don't know, like test ADR. So this just takes the 20 period average daily range, and if you multiply this by 100, that'll give you a percent. Because right now this is not in a percent, this is in a decimal. So if you multiply it by 100, it'll give you a percent. So you hit OK. It'll ask you to put it somewhere, but you don't have to do that. You can just kind of cancel out of that. And if you go to your library here and we look up test ADR, you can see that the one we just created pops up here. So that's the first step, is you have to have it in your library of indicators, or else it's not going to be something you can add. And then the next step is you just go to your pane here, you edit the toolbar, and then you can add whatever you want. And you can move these things around wherever you want. So most of the stuff that's on my dashboard here they're not things that I created. They're just standard formulas that TC2000 has. So for like the earnings per share stuff, if I just search for EPS, you can see all these different formulas here, latest EPS. And I think this is the raw number and these are the percent changes. So I have the last year and the last quarter. If you search for revenue, the percentage change the last quarter, you can do the growth rate the last 4 quarters, whatever you want to do for the fundamental stuff. TC2000 has a decent selection. I don't really track fundamentals really super close, but I like to have it in my view shed just so I can see what the latest numbers were. Same thing for earnings. Like if you look for earnings, there should be this next earnings. This will basically show you the date of the next earnings release. So I usually have that up here, and you can change the colors to these things. Like if I click on this specifically, you can change the color, you can change the size, you can change the decimal places. There's a bunch of different ways you can visualize this. I put it kind of bigger than everything else, and I put it in red just to make it stand out and make sure that I can see those things. But I already have the ADR here, for instance. But if I just want to add, I can just go to this row. You can add as many rows as you want, or you can. I try not to get my screen too clustered, because the more rows you add, the smaller it makes your chart actually, which I don't necessarily like that. So if we just go to this test ADR, this is the one that we created earlier. And I'm not going to change any of these. This is just for demonstration purposes, but if I hit OK, you'll see that this, I'm not quite sure why this is, why it's calculated different. That's interesting. ADR, I want to say it's the same formula. Average high low 20 times 100. And you'll notice this sometimes too, is sometimes if the formula, even though it seems to be the same, theoretically this is the same formula. I'm not sure why this is actually slightly different. I mean, it's not like it's that much off. It's just a fraction of a percent, but it is something you have to kind of deal with. If the formula is not exactly the same, sometimes you get some slight variations. But you can edit this. You can pretty much do whatever you want. You can actually add a suffix. So this doesn't naturally add a percent, but if you go over here and you add a percent sign like that, that'll make it a percent right here. So this doesn't naturally come with that. You can put a prefix. So if you want to make sure you're aware of like what that is referring to, you can put a prefix, you can put a suffix, and you can just make sure that you can add whatever front and back of this number, because it's just going to give you the raw number and you have to add other details. If you want to remove decimal places, you can see this changing as I change things. You can change the font bigger. You can change the color. If you want it to be a different color, you can do whatever you want. So that's how you would add an ADR. If you want to add other things like float is a default value, daily dollar volume isn't. But if I go to my PCF, so I created this PCF for a daily dollar volume, and it's essentially just showing the average volume of the last 20 sessions times the most recent close, and that's just the figure that I'm using for daily dollar volume. There's a variety of ways you can calculate DDV. There's not some standard way to do it. It's more of an indication of liquidity of the stock. Is it thin? Is it really liquid? That's really what it's about. It's not something that I overly concern myself with necessarily. So I just want to do a quick video while I had a minute to explain how you can add things to this top panel here, whether it's the default things that are already in TC2000, like float, like the earnings date, like the fundamental numbers, or if it's things that you build yourself. Again, just to rehash, the starting point is you have to have a PCF formula in the library before you can add it. So that's the first step. If you're trying to make something new and you want it in your display panel, make sure you create a formula. And then when you go to add it here, you'll be able to find it in this list. You just start typing and it'll pop up. So I hope you found that helpful, and if you have any more questions, just drop a comment. Thanks.